Great. So, looks like audio is working. That's great. Always a good thing to test. So, after a week off, I've decided, well, I've not decided, I was always going to, get some tutorials or workshops going for VRMs. We're going to be looking at a few different ones that lead up to the creation of an avatar. And yeah, today we're going to be focusing on sort of high polygon modeling. So let's get into it. So a while ago, I made a character of sorts, like a basic character, kind of like a mannequin for one of the spaces that I was working on. What this one does is using this as a base to sort of make a sort of a stylized character of sorts. I'm deciding to focus on. I'd kind of like to. The goal is to kind of create a digital version of myself that's much cooler. So basically, I'm going to use this as a guide to sort of do that. Now, this avatar, or this character, is low polygon, or low enough. But I might even try to reduce this a little bit in the end goal, because that's a little higher than it, not should be, but a little higher than it could be, I guess you could say. I'll also need to, I think I designed this one originally with an A pose, and in the VRM process, I sort of put the arms up. So things like this might be a little bit broken. So I'm going to fix this. So if you're creating a VRM, it is better, in a way, to create a sort of a T pose. So that sort of approach there. But there are ways to sort of counter that element in the process if you don't. So it's not the end of the world. But occasionally when you bounce between sort of an A pose and a T pose in that process, you might get certain artifacts, if you want to call them that, with the things here. So like this next side is good, but this one is not, and we can fix that in Zbrush. So today we're going to be focusing on the high polygon modeling. Now I use Zbrush for this, just because I've had experience with that over the longer period of time. That said, Blender does have sculpting. So if I wanted to, and let's do a quick example of that. I'm going to remove the parent, so it's like much bigger now as well. So always make sure to scale your transforms as needed. Oops, nope, that one. S. Generally I go for about 1.8 meters. So it's about 1.9. So let's go 1.8. About there. Now notice this. So this is what I'm talking about in regards to scale. So what I didn't do is apply my transforms before rigging it. So when you rig it, it doesn't necessarily line up correctly. So if you go to object mode, Control A, and go all transforms, that'll be 1, rotations will be 0, position will be 0, and it will be still too big, I think. Okay, so another way to test it, if you go mesh cube, that is a 2 meter square. So yeah, he's very big. So let's scale that down again. And notice how the arms are now in A pose. That's because the rig was the thing that created the T pose, not the model. We can fix that. We could fix it here. I might fix it in ZBrush as well. All right. So once again, we're at 0.1, so Control A, all transforms, and then we have our 1.81. Probably because of that little bit. So there's that. But that's fine. That works for me. So as long as these are good. Now you can apply just scale. Scale is definitely the main one. But generally I just get in the habit of transforming all of them to that because it looks neat. Okay. So we have our base. Now with that then, I can export that. Selected objects there, export FBX, and then we can import that into ZBrush. Now, you may not have a character to base your things on. It's very easy to buy like a base mesh on assets like ArtStation, Blender Market, Turbo Squid, I guess. There's a lot of websites that you can have access to basically a default character that you could use as a base and then build on top of that. I think I actually used one of those for this, and I've modified it so much that it doesn't look anything like the original. So yeah, there's definitely faster ways to get a character to start with. That said, if you're coming to character design and modeling for the first time, being able to model a character is a very important skill. So even if eventually you make your own base model or use somebody else's, being able to make a character is actually a pretty important skill. So you could use like reference image and then that sort of thing. So one approach to that. Now, ZBrush is an amazing program, and this was one of the first ones that sort of introduced sculpting way back in the never. Let's bring in. Well, let's have a quick look at some stuff. Why is that not working? Yeah, better. So basically, you can do some like really simple things. And a lot of people have made really good assets in regards to. Oops. Um, Being able to create tools really easily. Now I've set this up very custom to save some time. So what you can do, like ZBrush is very customizable. Like you can do all sorts of things. So what I've done is I've actually made sort of three custom menus, and then done a hotkey with them, so I can just bring them down whenever I want to. Um, so that like really saves me a lot of time. And you can do that sort of here. So hotkeys, you can sort of change that interface. Custom UI, I think, is the one. Custom sub palette and all the things like that. So there's a bunch of resources online and in the ZBrush website that allow you to sort of create really cool tools like this that save a lot of time. Now, one technique that I would recommend. What I want this one. To pretty much any asset in like if you're creating a character, for example, is basically making what do you call it? What's the words? Um what are the words? Creating kind of like sketching, I guess, in 3D. An asset before getting to the details, for example, is a really good way. I don't know what I'm making here. Let's take that back. Lots of stay to create your character in a way that kind of saves a bit of time and gets the right proportions down before you get to the details. So I wouldn't even really worry about um, the detail. I'm gonna put symmetry on so I can do that. And you basically have to. I'm gonna put my mouse aside because when it comes to sculpting, you're basically always going to be looking at sculpting. Um, so you've got that sort of effect where you get your base and then you sort of stop working on the detail because you want to get the shape of everything faster than everything else. And then you can use sort of Z remesher to sort of clean things up and add or delete assets, for example, as needed. That looks good. And then you can sort of move the basic aspects around. So we want to sort of move that up. Masking is also very important with ZBrush or sculpting in general. So say for example, I'll get this one and do that. And then you can do cool stuff like that. Sort of shift to smooth that one. And then you sort of get the basic shapes there. But say we want this part, or the nose, flip that, and then we can move that out. So you can make things real quick. So I can remesh that one, for example, to get some more polygons in there. And it will get like a little bit messy, but once you smooth it out and then clean that up, it gets really good results for that sort of thing. So yeah, but once again, this is like too much detail for what I want to do. So I would stop like at that. If anything, yeah, there we go. And then start focusing on sort of different parts of the body. Now, another approach to a lot of ZBrush elements is even this one object is kind of too much. So I'm going to get rid of this one. I'll make a new one. There we go. And then add an asset as well. How do I do that again? I forget. Append. So append, yeah. This one. And then move that. Where is that? Let's go with this one. Yeah, there we go. So another approach to a lot of these sort of things is by sort of building up parts of an asset. So let's say we want to do sort of this element. They get sort of like a head that way. And you would build the whole body with this approach. Get that jaw over here a bit better. Make it a very strong jaw, I guess. That works. And this allows you to sort of create assets that are easier to modify and easier to sort of feel out how that works. And then you can use like standard anatomy approaches to create your asset. And then once you sort of are happy with the result, you can sort of join these and then start uh, building the higher detail section. So I would probably do another one just as an example. Let's get a nose involved. I think, is it that one? Nope, this one. There we go. So, and depending on how you want to do it, so I could put another one there. There's like, yeah, 20,000 ways, as always. To create it. Just whichever one works for you. And then you can get into sort of the details after that. So if we go maybe down here. That a bit. Of Nice. Um, so yeah, that's sort of like the head, and then you would do the whole thing, like whole character. Um, and of course that takes a while. Like if you're looking at professional level character creation, you're looking at like anywhere between a month to 6 months. Like 6 months would be like a primary character, like a hero character. Um, and once again, depends on the skills of the artist and things like that. So there's a lot of levels in regards to um, like how long it takes, I guess you could say. Um, and a lot of the sculpting comes down to basically the subdivision, like how many. Now, some people would put that like deep, so you would actually have that sort of overlap, which does. I find the result is usually better than this sort of approach when you actually sort of do have like the inbuilt shape in here. So I could, for example, actually, let's do this one. And just move that in like that. So the interior doesn't matter so much. What does matter is this part. And I have topology, which one allows me to just sort of do that. Now, of course, this is not the best version. Just doing quick examples. But yeah. So as you can see, that overlap looks significantly better than if I just sort of wedged it together. So that's a better approach for sure. Yeah. When you're masking and doing things like that and moving, um, note that backface cull is a thing. So you'll get results like that, which is not great. Um, Now to get rid of that, how do I do it? I think I put it in one of my things, but there's actually which one is it? Backface cull. There, backface mask. Now the problem when you do all the hotkeys is I've kind of forgotten where everything actually is. So there's a lot of menus in Zbrush. So when it comes to finding where these are, it's a little tricky. Backface mask. There we go. So backface mask will allow, hopefully, if I do that, might be what do you call it? If an asset is too close together, sort of thing. So there's that. So yeah, so that's that. So yeah, main thing on all of that is basically create. Same with any art, to be honest. Like if you're drawing, if you're sculpting, if you're doing anything, you'll pretty much always sort of create the three phases of any asset. So you'll create the primary shapes, or let's say silhouette. And that's very important also because when you're doing the low polygon, the silhouette is the most important thing. Everything else gets put into normal maps, or baking the high polygon information onto the low polygon information. So the silhouette is what you're going to make a low polygon for the most part. And then the secondary, which is like just a little bit more detail. You may model this into the lower polygon asset or not, depending on what the asset is or the element is. And then tertiary, which is basically normal mapped information. So that's like wrinkles and stuff like that. So yeah. So there's that. All right. So I'm gonna get rid of all these, and I'm gonna put in my character. Crash? Yeah. Looks like my ZBrush is a bit unstable lately. Okay, so this time we're going to import a character, which is the one I had from Blender. So, and then edit. One thing you will find very quickly is the red default is the same as Comic Sans, and you have to get rid of it as soon as you possibly can. Gray is much better. Okay. So I'm going to do some quick checks on the asset. So it looks like there's some issues there, but that's fine. And once again, I'm using this as a kind of a guide. I'm not really going to be making what would you call it? I'm not going to be using this character because I'm going to use the character that I've used previously. So what we're going to do this session is make some pants, I think. So let's divide this guy up. 3 works. I'm going to also press X for some symmetry, and I need to go this one. So let's do some long pants. So the plan here is some... I'm also going to hide the arms. So these are using things like, what is it? Alt, no, that's move. Yeah. Control. So control will be mask, and control shift will be hide. Bit high, but that's fine because we can move it a bit later. And then that. Now, one thing I do use a lot is, so if I use control and that, and then go there, it'll do a straight line between the last 2 points. So that's useful for that sort of thing as well. Yeah. Now, one tool here that I use quite a lot is extract, I think it is. So we go extract, you got that, which is a bit thick. So let's go a bit thinner. Let's keep the smoothness the same. I'm not going to do a border. Yeah. Cool. And then go accept. And that'll make a new one, which is great. Now what it does, it will keep the what do you call it? The mask of the thing, so you can sort of clean up the asset a bit there. That said, I'm not worried about that because I'm actually going to, what is it? Do that. So if we hold Control, Shift, and click on an asset, it'll get rid of the other ones. And then I'm just going to delete hidden. And then I'm going to close holes. So it does that. So that's just a much cleaner approach to creating things. And when I have a character, it'll be much cleaner for the normal map to be baked. So yeah, having thinking in normal maps is 100% a skill, where you'll do things in slightly different ways in order to get a better a normal map. So as an example, I'm going to show how normal maps work. So you'll design your high polygon in a way, like some aspects that you create will be created in a slightly different way to make the normal map approach a little bit easier. So I'm going to do, let's do that one. Okay. So let's have a look. Right. So let's say I have a high polygon. Let's do this. High and low. Okay. So let's say we do a couple of different examples. So let's say I have a high polygon asset that is going to do this. Now, when you're baking information, so let's get a different color going. So let's say this is our low polygon, right? And we want to project this high polygon. So let's say there's many polygons in this very straight object. What happens is this information is projected to the low polygon. So that will go up there, up there, up there, up there, like so. So if you had an asset that looked exactly like this, the result would actually look like... Nope. Red, please. The result would actually be straight, because I don't have any information here or here to project up to. So the result is it would look flat. So let's do that again down here. So what you do with normal maps is you want to sort of create angles. So if we were just going to do a very sharp asset like this, which I wouldn't recommend because you can do it better, you'll have this line here. So the result would look like, you'll have that line there, and you'll have a line there on, once again, the flat normal map. Sorry, the flat polygon. So make sure that if you're going to be using normal maps, that it has something to map normally, I guess. Now, the best approach, of course, let's get rid of some of this. The best approach of this would be to actually be a high polygon asset. So you might have your pants there, you'll have like and you got like a curve here. So you got the straight line there for the height, you'll have a curve there for that like detail, and a curve there for the detail as well. And if this was like what do you call it, a loop for the belt, you might put some stitching there, and things like that. So in the end, the result would look like, so red is look like, you'd have that, and then you'd have like a high line there, and then the stitching again, the curve there, sharp edge there, and that, and all of that information would be on a low polygon result. So it would look like the red on the green, based on that. So I hope that makes sense. I'm sure it's a bit complicated if you haven't come to normal maps before. So let's look at some real world examples, I guess. Hang on. Yeah, this will do. So this is the Wikipedia page. And this is what a normal map looks like. So this sort of bluish one, usually blue, will allow you to do a high polygon onto a low polygon with the same result. Now, as you can see here, can I make that big? Yeah. And this is, as I was talking about with before, with a silhouette is the most important thing. Excellent. Hi, chat, by the way. I've been very focused on this stuff. Hey, Jade, N and Morpha, Metaverse Architecture, how's it going? So yeah, when it comes to low polygon modeling, the edge is what you see, because the low polygon will actually get, like the high polygon will actually get baked into, and you don't really see a lot of it because of the normal map, which is amazing, and magic. But now you have Unreal 5 with Nanite, where you can kind of get away with I don't know if they've got it on skinned meshes yet, but on environment you can sort of do how many polygons you want. That said, in WebGL or browser-based experiences, you still have to very much focus on poly count because we aren't Unreal 5, basically. And yeah, you got to get the file size down. There's basically a lot of reasons we need to sort of do this low polygon normal map approach. Another example, this one here. So you'll have your color, you'll have your normal map, and I don't think that really counts. But you'll be able to sort of have the light affect the brick in sort of kind of this way. And here is a good example of what you bake this onto. And here is a good example of that sort of edge. So if you had that straight example where I showed you before, where you had like straight lines going up, you wouldn't see these edges. And the map would literally just be straight blue. So normal mapping projects the height difference rather than the height, if that makes sense. So yeah, very good to know. So this is a good example here of sort of the normal map there. There's a lot of examples, basically. So yeah, height difference or slope, I guess you could say, would be another way to approach it. So yeah, this wouldn't show anything. This shows everything. So that's a good way to do it. Now, where was I? Okay, so I made these pants solid because you won't see any of this, and it just cleans up the mesh. Having like double-sided assets in Zbrush is really not great. Okay, now back to sculpting. Now the next thing we need, of course, is reference. So not back to sculpting. I have these guys. I'm kind of getting into cyberpunk techwear sort of stuff. I like this kind of guy. So really puffy techwear sort of gear. Nope. And getting good reference is extremely important. It's probably the most important thing you can do when you're starting to get some, like, start modeling and creating your asset. So I'm kind of like in this vibe nowadays. So I might do something similar to this. So find the art that works for you. Actually, gonna put that on this screen. Close that so I can still see chat. Okay. Now, so once again, we're going to need some lower polygon. Once again, this is too high. And one thing I do find beneficial is, especially in ZBrush, it's really easy to get lost in the details when you are not remotely close to needing details. So I'm going to put, where is it? That one. That, and I'm going to change the colors. How do I do that? Where did I do that? Group masked. There we go. So that way. And then when I can do remesher or can halve it, keep the groups and get it real simple. There we go. One, because it's neat. Two, because when I move stuff, it's just so much easier. So what do we need? Really baggy. Let's go bigger. It sort of gets thinner at the bottom. Now I've got this sort of thing, and that's great because these pants are never like super clean. I'm gonna mask some of this out, and then grab that kind of thing. Now this is only one way. I could use inflate and do the whole thing. Like there's many different approaches as always. Yeah. So yeah, start small, start low, and build up. Um, and every layer, and this is one thing I found really useful actually was a statement that was kind of like trust the process. Where like I think when you're learning, not so much. It's actually very hard to do it, but eventually you get to the point where your asset will look bad for 90% of it. Because you trust the process and your ability to um, to do what you expect it to do. Um, and by trusting the process, you start being faster at things because you do it right, even when in many cases it doesn't look right for a good part of the process. So yeah, you'll save time eventually, but as a beginner, it's nearly impossible because like you want to see it look good um, as fast as you can, and therefore you'll like I'll like that's nice, so I'll go to like divide it a lot, for example, and then I'll start getting my like that sort of stuff. But it's not going to look nearly as good as if you do it correctly from the beginning. Uh, so yeah, it's definitely one thing that I've found very useful with kind of confidence in self as well. That plays a big part in it. But once again, it does take time. And I think jumping ahead is fine as a starting artist, just on the grounds that you want to like understand what you're doing and things like that. Um, I think that's good. That's a little interesting. So yeah, trust the process. Eventually, cool. What else do we need? We need lots of pockets. We'll worry about that later. Because also, like the pockets are very much a normal map, except for the big one. So I'll look at that in a second. Okay, so that's cool. All right. What's next? One thing you can do, and this is really good for this sort of thing, is where is it? Z modeler. You can so Z modeler. If you go to sort of edges, you can put a crease there. So when you um, subdivide, it sort of keeps it clean. And we want that one to be very clean. We kind of want the one below it to be clean as well. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so we won't get complete. We'll just get a partial. Yeah, that's what we want. Down. We'll do this one as well, and this one. There are some really cool things here where you can, what's it called, dynamic subdivision, which is really cool. I haven't used ZBrush in a while, so Kind of forgotten half of this stuff. Where is that? Some subtool. I think it's in geometry. Dynamic subdivision, dynamic. So it gets really smooth, and it keeps these creases, which are great. And the thing is, so when I sculpt, I'm actually sculpting on the lowest. I think it is anyway. Yeah. So that's a really sharp sort of thing, but it's only modifying the low poly because there's no subdivisions on this. This is still that line. So dynamic is really, really useful. And then you have the ability to, one, if you hold control over objects over here, it'll show you more detail of what it is. And one of these, I think, which one was it? There's one that will sort of divide and I forget what it is. So it'll divide along creases and then start doing some stuff. So there's some really useful tools. I gotta remember what that is. But if I do apply, we'll have 3 divisions, and then I can do sharp lines, for example, which is kind of a nice effect. Now, when it comes to wrinkles and details, I'm finding that it's actually better depending on the kind of wrinkle. So if it's a big one, then I'll probably do it in here. I'll need to divide a couple more times so I can sort of get that sort of really neat sort of thing. Also want sort of like a yeah. Sort of effect there, which looks good. And of course, there's a lot of brushes and materials that you can buy. That's the wrong creasing because that doesn't work. Reference, get on it. That's it. There we go. Bit bigger. So you get a lot of, there's a lot of, like, especially if you're getting into stylized work. Just looking at the reference. Where you'll get like really sort of either super realistic or super stylized or everything in between assets that allow you to sort of speed things up in regards to style points, I guess you could say. I need to figure out some stuff on my setup. Oh, those are cool. Once again, just looking at reference. So we've got these, which is kind of where I want to go. And it also shows you sort of the wrinkles, which is kind of what I want to do. But I want to make that a bit more stylized. And by stylized, I want to go kind of arcane. I want to learn more about arcane style. Not them. Arcane Riot. That's the one. So Valorant and Arcane would probably be the 2 sources of information or resources that I'd like to do there. I also want to learn hand painting. I've never really done it before. Really want to. So yeah, there's a whole learning process that I would like to do. This guy. So this is a prime example of kind of what I want to do. Yeah. So between sort of this and that, I probably have enough to sort of work with all this, which is perfect. That's what we want. So yeah, using, once again, reference a lot. A lot. Where did my pen go? Ah, there it is. Now, initially, I will use sort of what do you call it? Symmetry. But eventually, definitely recommend like taking it off. Like with something like this to make sure that it doesn't get too symmetrical. And you can do that with pretty much every part of it. So these two are getting a little too symmetrical. So I'm going to sort of break that up a bit. So what you could do it symmetrical for, let's say, primaries. So really, really big brush strokes. But then once you get to the secondary and the tertiary, probably move that to something else. So you got that sort of style kicking in. A lot of sculpting I find is mistakes are good. Play it, undo it, try it again. Like there's no reason to not explore different ideas when it comes to this sort of stuff to get the best result, short of deadlines. So if you have a deadline, that's different. But okay. I think that's good primary. Just going to make that a bit smaller. I kind of like that effect there. So I'm going to sort of like double down on that a bit. Cool. And then I'm going to get rid of that. And then you can, yeah, see sort of what you're actually doing. A bit easier. All right. So that's a good start. Let's get some sort of straps in. So once again, we want. I don't know what's cool. I kind of want to coming down from there, sort of thing. But let's see how this goes. Yeah, that works. Yeah, let's just move it up later. Once again, that's an extract. Extract, where's that? That one. Big and bulky, I think that's fine, actually. I don't mind that. Maybe not. Hang on. Yeah. So once again, I want stylized, so everything has to be thick and cool. That's the official approach. So I'm going to accept that. Now, if I recall, let's go back up to Subtool, go to that. Get rid of those. So delete hidden. Remesh to clean it up. I want one line, or at least two, maybe. But that's pretty good. Yeah. Okay. Maybe one more. Give it a shot. Sure. And then we can sort of start moving things around. Get this up as well. Now, what I would do here is I would actually model this over the top of the so I'd actually have this as a mesh and then go back to the legs, I guess you could say. We can sort of clean some of this up. Get that effect. Maybe move these ones in a bit. So once again, you have polyframe here to sort of make that clearer. Depending on what you're working on. So now this is a bit of a mess. Let's see if we can clean it up a little bit. How would we do that? This is where Zbrush does fail a little bit. Is the subdivision sort of thing. So sometimes I'll actually bounce between Blender, and this is why Blender having sculpting tools, which it does have, but not as good as ZBrush. Sometimes it's good to just stay in Blender for most of it, because you can, I guess. Let's see what happens here. Yeah. That do. Stitch, stitch. So yeah, the subdivision modeling tools in ZBrush are okay, but kind of different is one way to explain it. For better or worse, I guess you could say. But yeah, Sub-D modeling is just kind of like modeling in Blender, like standard. So there's a bit of a mix. Okay, so that's cool. Now, oddly enough, I forget. Maybe this. Yeah, we don't want out. We want in. So that'll be. There we go. That one. That's a bit annoying. The other approach is we actually just move everything down, which could also work. Let's do that. Now, what you could do here, especially with what do you call them, spring bones, is have these kind of bits be a little bit flappy, the technical term, which would be cool, and use some of the VRM tools to good advantage. So for that, I might just put that there. And let's move these ones out a little bit. Now I don't mind the fact that these look a bit ratty and not smooth, purely because like that's kind of what they look like. So what we could do, and probably will do because that'd be cool, is have this to here, sort of maybe up here. So I'll move them out a little bit to make that a bit clearer. So doing here to the mesh, but then loosen this one, and then have a kind of like a bit of a stiff bone that sort of flaps about there. I think that'd be really cool. So we're going to do that. All right. Let's add some spring. No, not spring bone. Spring bone's too much. Crease. That's the one I want. And I am just going to do dynamic subdivide on those for now, because then we can move them around as needed while still being low polygon. Now I could do that with like moving up and down the division. So it just depends on if you want to sort of do that. But that's cool. All right. What next then? Cutting some buckles, some pockets. Let's go back to this one with Alt and click. We need sort of a Do we want a belt? I think we do. So let's do a belt. Thin belt, thick belt, stylized, thick. So, yeah. Back to extract. You don't want double-sided. So it's the same. Extract. Yep. Accept. And we're on the belt. Hide some of these other ones. That out. So get that sort of effect there. So what we want. Let's get this going. And then half. Keep groups. Delete hidden and close holes, like so. Yeah. Let's once again, that one, grease that, and dynamic subdivision. All right, belt done. Pretty easy. How's he looking? Armless. Now, what I would probably do here is I would actually delete the legs, depending on how accurate we want to do. But to be honest, because it's going under, I might actually move some of this out. Yeah, let's do that. So go bigger, and I'm actually going to that one. Get rid of that. I'm going to go down once again, because if you're making large differences in the asset, yeah, stick with the larger division sections, because otherwise it'll be a bit weird. Cool. So yeah, choosing different assets to like do high poly and detailed, or just sort of a temporary sort of thing. Like it's definitely a case by case on every single asset that you'll create. So it's certainly a process. Um, that said, like making characters is cool fun. This is where I kind of came from actually, before getting into environments with Mona. Um, was yeah, basically creating characters. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. Now these are examples of there wouldn't be much of a difference between that point and maybe I would want one. Um, so you could put a bevel on that higher to get that sort of smooth loop around there eventually. Once again, I'm just basically concepting at this point. Um, so just choosing the best way to get the results you want faster. It's a good way to do it. All right. Now these are actually going to be socks. Eventually, I need cool shoes as well. Um, but yeah, worry about that later. All right. What else do we need? We need some higher division because we need some pockets. So let's get rid of that. So sort of, they usually looks like it's on the side. Bit more, bit more. Ah, hmm, yeah. So if you press P, you go to perspective. If you turn that off, you don't get things like. So if I did this, so even though technically holding Shift and move it around, it'll snap to the side. Um, it'll do some interesting stuff with perspective there, but if you do this, then it'll be like a clean cut perspective, if that makes sense. So, and then I can sort of get rid of the inner side ones better. Do I want to higher? I think a little bit. Now, once again, I'm going to be using extract on this. I'm not going to raise it from here. I want a bit more control. So usually, a lot of the time, I will sort of create. Um, yeah, want different assets, so I have more control over each one. So let's nope, not that one. Oh, yeah, what we want. Make sure there's no other ones. Cool, and then go extract. Yeah. Yep, that's good. That out. And we want to remesh again. Or do we? Because we want that sort of detail. They do line up a fair bit. What I am going to do, though, do this. Top, maybe? Yeah. Yeah. I do want to clean it up a little bit. Remeasure that one. So when you extract, you lose the division. So usually I'll clean that up a little bit, and then I'll add the division on the top of that. So yeah. That. And the next thing we want to do there is kind of do that again. Those with not that mask. No, these are actually quite low. Something like that. Let's go a bit deeper on that one. Cool. And get rid of that. Now, once again, not too focused about the technical side of it. I'm purely thinking about the normal maps and how they would bake. So, like here, for example, once again, going kind of stylized. So I'm going to sort of go once with a more simple approach. to the whole process. And once again, like I'll clean that up with the high polygon, like pushing that a little bit further. And I'll probably look into that in a second. Hang on for time. So I'll look at something finished in this session. Just got to get to it. But things like this, I do need to clean up. So you want things clean, you don't want things normal, I guess is one way to approach it. So under that, like that in there, because otherwise that little line there would actually turn up in the bake. If I had sort of like a line out here. So I definitely want to clean that up and make sure it looks like it's meant to. Smoothing there. So you have that sort of nice result. Okay. And like something like that, that would, like it's subtle, but I kind of don't want it. So I'm going to clean that up a bit as well. Till we get something we can kind of start with to look really good. That's neat. And I'm just going to make sure to hide that so you don't really see it in whatever state it is. Okay. Now note that sometimes that you'll have like the left and the right will be different, even though those are symmetrized. So yeah, and that's fine. If anything, that's actually better, purely because you don't want fully symmetrical assets, unless once again, not once again because I haven't brought it up yet. You can save, not save. You can optimize texture use. So, say for example, you have a really detailed leg. So, if I was doing a robot, let's use that example. The right leg and the left leg will probably look mostly the same. So, to save or improve your texture use, you could make one leg normal map and do that all correctly, and then mirror the results, and then you'll have like a much higher quality texture for two legs that use the space of one, or smaller. So for file size, it depends on what you want to focus on. With something with cloth, you don't want symmetrical because then it would look kind of boring and a bit not very like it'd look off, I guess you could say. So some assets could be flipped. So the shoes and socks, for example, could 100% be a flip. So I could create one shoe and make sure that there's no detail, say dirt or marks, that would make it very clear that this is a flipped texture. But then, so from here down, I could just create one shoe. And then once I've baked it and textured it, I could flip that and then VRM it, basically. So this shoe would be higher quality, and then the pants would be sort of all unique. So there are definitely many ways, as with any step of the process, to optimize your assets to be that little bit cooler, depending on what you need to do. So let's look at some high polygon elements here. So let's get rid of ZBrush and let's sort of do the third level of this one. Now, usually there's actually a really good stylized what would you call it? I'm not really liking that. Actually, it was better before. Maybe I'll stick with that plan. Let's go back to our reference as well. Hmm. Okay. So I do have some. I think it's called orb. I forget what I called it. But yeah, really, really good stylized brushes that would be perfect for this. But I'll keep to sort of like the basics tools. That said, do I have some in here? No. So these are all the brushes that come with ZBrush. So I'll stick to that. So basically bouncing between like mark in, mark out, and Z smooth. Now another thing that is quite useful is like H polish. So that's so you get that sort of stylized look. And that would probably help a lot with uh, the the arcane effect. Let's call it the arcane effect. Where you get that sort of like really rough hand painted look. And this would kind of be a good guide for lighting of that, if that makes sense. So I could try that. I think we're definitely getting to an interesting age of art where, like, the technology is well. I think we've been saying this for a long time. I think I don't know how much of it is true, but um, we're getting to a point where the technology is not limiting us as much as previously. So, like, the ideas that we can have now are really quite interesting, and I'm sort of looking forward to when we start getting into games or metaverse stuff, which takes like a lot of those ideas to like the next level and what happens with that information. Um, kind of interested to see what happens with that. Just randomly doing all over the top is actually kind of interesting too. Like you can already see it, like the just the something about the weird effect of light on the asset kind of is starting to look like Arcane and how they do that really cool hand painting effect. Um, so anything that gets you to the result that you want faster, I kind of like that. Now these are not as high polygon anymore, so I can divide that and do the same thing. Might need some more detail, I guess you could say. Page blush. That's one. Now, the other thing I can do, or try to do, is sort of square this off a bit. Where is definitely better than curved bottoms on a pocket. Works. Now, trim dynamic as well. Another tool for similar results. So definitely play with all of the brushes to sort of get the effect that you're after. Depending on the effect you're after. Now, once again, be careful with how normaled this is. So that'll be good. I smooth it a little bit so I can sort of see that groove. So that gets baked. That said, I am probably going to put a normal map here and here. Not normal map, polygon. So you can sort of cover that. So there doesn't need to be as much focus on... Where's pinch? I haven't got pinch in here. Um, so yeah, so the low poly and the high poly basically work together. And you have to design both with the goal in mind. For the best result. Nope. That one. That one. So hopefully you can see. Once again, this isn't like this would take a good while to do it properly, but you can sort of see it coming along. I think to being able to create those assets, like high quality assets, I guess you could say. That you can then retopologize. Actually, let's put this on. Where is it? Lazy mouse. So this does sort of like a smoothing of the thing, so it's a bit smoother. I think also you have to. No, I want that small, but I want intensity higher. So that one. Yeah. And on Friday, on my Friday, same time, I'm going to be doing sort of retopology. So I might try and work on these legs, and then make the result in what do you call it? Okay. See, if I had some shoes, that'd be cool. Big move, small res. Oh, yeah. Sharper. Better. Okay. Now let's clean up this a bit so I can have something more interesting to play with. So at the moment, I've got that on subdivide, dynamic subdivide. Um, let's try some other things. There was a thing, it was really cool, and I forget where it is because it's been so long, where like it will subdivide it for a couple. Maybe it's this one. Grid? Yeah, nope. Um, edge loop. I forget where it was, but it would like subdivide a couple with the crease, and then turn the crease off. Ah, maybe it's in the crease. Yeah, that's it. So if we go to like 2, yeah, there we go. So if we go to 1 or 2, it'll subdivide and then crease. But then after 2, it no sort of subdivides everything, and we get this really nice sort of result, and it's still dynamic, right? So we can edit that. So the corners of this the straps would be really really good. What else do we do? What else do we do? What else do we do? Probably clean up these. Put a little bit more detail in there. Um, Sometimes you sort of don't want too much detail. because then you sort of get like some effects like that where it didn't look as well as it could have. So it's kind of like an interesting thing of figuring out the best approach to different effects that you might want. So yeah, another part of it, I guess. Some things work, some things don't. Try them all. Especially when you're learning. I think when you're learning, messing up is great. um like the best time to mess up actually is the start. When you don't have the sharp deadlines, you don't have the stress of dealing with real world problems. It does take, let's say, well, maybe it doesn't. It might feel like, let's do that. It might feel like it's taking longer to learn. Yeah, see that's much better. I like that. Yeah, I'm gonna do that on this side as well. So it might feel like it takes a lot longer to start when you're actively trying to mess things up, but messing things up is the best way to learn everything. And if you don't mess up, messing up later will be more expensive, basically, for lack of a better way to say it. So yeah, I think a lot of artists, especially in this day and age, with where everything's at, with everything has to be great, it doesn't. Especially when you're starting. To me, I think it's actually important to realize that it shouldn't be great, because if it is, you're not learning the actual things that you're not learning the problems that will come up in different situations, and they definitely will. So I think there does seem to be sort of like an underlying vibe, and I think there always has been, but now it's like just really sharp, where everything has to be amazing on the first try, and if it's not, you might as well start again. That is not true. That is not how skills work. So, um, yeah, be willing and wanting, I think, to fail, because then you'll actually be good. Okay, so a couple of interesting things. So we're sort of getting to the, well, we're not really, but we're getting to the last stage of maybe tertiary. No, not tertiary. That's the last one. Primary and secondary. So I like the basic shape, and now we're sort of getting to the secondary details. So then I would start getting into the tertiary details. So an example of this would be, let's say, like just a little tab thing. um, is it? Now the reason for that is because this is a double-sided thing. It's the technical term. So I'm going to get rid of that, and then get somehow. This is a prime example of the back mesh thing. I forget if I turned that on. Forget where I put it. There. So as an example, if I do something like this, it's not there. But if it's off, also not there. So backface mesh modding is a bit strange in ZBrush, but that is one approach to maybe figuring out that issue. So let's flip that. How am I going to get rid of that then? Actually, what I could do. Yeah. Always away. And then we can extract it. Well, then we can unhide everything so you can sort of see, but that's the problem there. So if I unhide that and then flip it, there. But we actually want to do that and then go extract. I'm actually going to keep that because actually, no. Turn off double. That, extract. There we go. Another cool one that I've used sometimes, I think, where is it? Edge looped masked border, and that kind of cleans things up a bit, if I recall. You need that to see it. Yeah, so that's a bit messy. So if it's I forget exactly the details, but yeah. So what we want to do is we kind of want to make that looped. We want to go that in. So I'm just gonna let's do smooth. Move. Result. Apart from the fact that I've moved it in the wrong direction. Another approach actually. So let's go way up. And sort of mask it, and then hold Control and click, so you sort of smooth that, and then when you just move, problem solved. Nearly. Certainly a good start though. Nope, too much. Put these intensity up at some point, so a bit better. Hidden, and then remesh. Yep. What I'm going to do. Okay. Because I must. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Now, interestingly enough, this is a good example. Like, if I was making a normal map, no, I'd actually have to make it go down for reasons. Um, so what I'm going to do is just move these down. Now, another approach to this is to actually mask them all like that. Flip it, and then use this instead. So maybe that way a little bit. Just to save a bit of time, and so when I start playing with this again, it'll be correct. What's going on there? Better. All right. Now, because this goes up a bit, I'm actually going to model that as well. So in this case, we actually need to do some creases. Here. And I might, how do I insert an edge loop? So. And then we can sort of just move those out a bit. Get that sort of looped effect. Although, what I might try and do is just this instead. So, and then we can put the dynamic thing on, like so. And now that I know where it is, I can put that down to 2. Yeah. Now in this case, we've sort of done. Okay. So smooth sort of does a bit of warping. So I'm just going to get that out of the way. So it always has an asset to bake when I do the normal map. I'm going to get rid of that one. So yeah, just once again, making sure it's clean. Doesn't have to be accurate, but it does have to be clean. So, and of course I can straighten that up and all. Yeah, I know went about this the wrong way, I think. But same result. So we have that now, and we also have it only on one side, so I can go Zbrush, Z plugin, sorry. Which one is it? Subtool Master? Yeah. think they've added some to these. Mirror. Merge into one subtool. Yes. On the X. Yes. There we go. Now, because that is... why is that flipped? There we go. Log, because that seems more accurate. Yeah. Hello. All right. Now what I'd probably do is in Substance Painter, I'd probably stitch, like add stitches to that in Substance rather than doing it in Painter. So there is benefits to sort of knowing when is the best time to do different effects. And one of those effects is stitches and seams and things like that. Nowadays, I've been focusing on doing those in Painter because you can 100% do them in Blender or in Zbrush, but you sort of lose a lot of that information. It's not as clean in the normal map baking unless you do really high resolution and then scale it down and all that sort of stuff. So there are ways to do it, but you sort of want the cleanest result as possible. So things like this, I would probably, yeah, I would probably do in Painter. That said, I have an idea. I want to do some effects on. Do I want to? No, I don't. What I'd probably do is add a buckle here though, because that'd be cool. So I'll probably do that eventually. So yeah. So that's the start of some high polygon assets. Let's go back to this guy. Once again, just to sort of see the result. Let's put P back on so you can sort of see that, and let's go like that. Alrighty. So yeah, so this session, I'm really gonna wrap it up there. It's been a good 2 hours. So looking at this asset, basically we've created sort of the basics of some belts. I'd probably add some loops over the top of that as well, buckle down here. But for the most part, like I could probably say that the pants part, and even the this is done for the high polygon. The socks I wouldn't even consider started. I would probably be looking at the socks and the shoes together rather than the socks with the pants. But yeah, everything is definitely additional to whatever the previous part was. So there's that. All right. Why is it is actually working? Okay. So with that, let's wrap it up. With a happy smile. And have a good week. I'm probably hopefully going to keep at this over the course of the week to have, let's say, the pants done if I can, and maybe some shoes if I get enough time. So on the next workshop, which will probably be once again my Friday, many people's Thursday night, I can retopologize these pants and have an asset to set into VRM for the following workshops next week. So that'll be pretty cool. So tune in. Before I forget, I'm going to save this. No, save as a tool. I always save as a tool. No, save as tool, yeah. Desktop. Mona. Tutorials, workshops, VRMs. Okay. Now I'll just save this out. Okay, cool. All right, thanks for watching. Enjoy your week or your weekend, whenever you decide to watch this. And have a nice day and happy building. Bye.